And we're back with another episode of the Tim Gillette Show. You know, we have found some of the most interesting and coolest people on the planet to bring onto this show. I've been doing this, I don't know, 7, 8 years or something like that. And every week, I get to interview somebody new and I get to find something unique about them that I didn't know before because most of them, believe it or not, I don't know who they are when they come on here. Today's guest, Sarah. I don't know Sarah at all. All right. I had a brief moment in the green room before we went live. And other than that, we're both, you and I, are going to get to know Sarah together. Sound like a plan? We know she's cool because she's on my show, right? Let's bring her up here and find out what she's up to. Hello, Sarah. Are you there?
I am here. Hello, Tim.
Hey, so welcome to the Tim Gillette Show. All right. I got to say, I don't know anything about you. I don't even know where you live, Sarah, or anything.
Well, I can answer that question. That's easy enough. I live in the greater Milwaukee area in Wisconsin of the United States.
Milwaukee. Now, I've had somebody else on my show from Milwaukee a couple months back. And, who was it? I can't remember who it was. But I've been to Milwaukee. That's where I proposed to my wife, was Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's very neat.
At a place called the Harley Davidson Museum.
Well, I mean, as anyone would, right?
As I said, why else would you go to Milwaukee other than to get a good Bloody Mary?
That's fair. Or beer.
Or beer, yeah. Yeah. So I follow a guy online from that area. Charlie, I think he's higher up in Minnesota. Charlie Beans?
Oh, Barron's. Yes,
Barron's.
He's from Manitowoc.
Yeah. He's the guy I know from Wisconsin. I think he's pretty cool, but I don't know him personally. I would love to get him on my show, but anyway.
He's a funny guy. I've never met him personally, but yes, I agree. He's very funny.
Yeah. So Sarah, all right, you know what I mean? We're having you on as a guest in the show today. I don't even know, other than I heard like you're a parenting coach or anything. I mean, tell us about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I have a variety of interests, but in my personal life, I'm married. I have a daughter who joined our family on a permanent basis when she was 16 and a half years old. And I have fostered children of different ages and became a parent coach just because I had so much information on trauma parenting and parenting styles that our workers were like, you need to do something with this. So I work with parents of kids in the foster care system, build relationships with their children, and work through any of those barriers to reunification.
Cool. And what got you, what was the heartstring that pulled you into working with these kids?
Well, the heartstring, I would have to say, is just kids needing a place to go. Like it tugged, and we thought, like, we were naive and thought, oh yeah, foster parenting, that would be something that we could do, and quickly realized it's a lot more than just filling out more paperwork than you need to buy a house. It's really learning about trauma parenting and behaviors, and I'm really big into the brain science behind what happens when people are traumatized and why people respond differently after that happens.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I mean, I've had friends that, had foster kids. I never really thought about the process, never really thought about it, but I do understand that, most of these kids that are in the foster system are bounced around like ping pong balls. You know what I mean? And it's got to take a special, it's got to take a special, a special interest to be able to work with these kids, because some of them probably aren't fun to work with. And some of the families, I hear some of these families treat this like this is a business. They're just doing this to make money. They don't care about the kid. Is this
how you make money?
Huh?
I don't know how you make money in the foster care realm. If you're doing it right, you're generally going negative each month.
Oh wow!
It's not about the money, and ideally, the foster care stipend is to help offset the costs and supports that your children need. Because, for a while there, we had 2 teenage girls in our home, and we had 15 hours of appointments a week at least, and just getting kids there and having to take all of that time off of work because nobody wants to work after 5, and it just becomes a bit of a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, these are only things I've heard. Again, I've never experienced this. All right. You know what I mean? I only had one child of my own.
Mhm.
And then, you know what I mean? As my two stepsons are, you know, that I want to say they're my stepsons, they were adults by the time I met them. I mean, when my current wife and I got married, you know, when they were, you know, 20 and 24 years old, or 20 and 24, 20 and 22, or something like that. So they were, I mean, they were in their younger, you know, young adult lives when I met. As a matter of fact, my youngest stepson turns 30 this coming month, and my daughter turns 32. Yeah, I don't know if I think it's 32 this week. So
Oh, happy birthday.
yeah. So my kids aren't young anymore. And it was like, wow, you had kids when you were young. And I'm like, I'm not that young, believe it or not. But yeah, I've only dealt with, you know, in my experience, I've dealt with my own children and stepchildren, because that's the world where I've been in. I've never looked at the foster care system, all right, or what that entails. However, I mean, I was in many churches as a kid where there was almost always a family or two in the church who probably had the same heart you did. They were taking care of kids, all right, and raising them. As a matter of fact, one of the families that I'm still close to, almost every one of the kids in that family, they did take in fosters. As a matter of fact, they adopted 2 of them, all right, that there were twins, brother and sister, that I'm still very close to, all right. They, you know what I mean? I understood it by watching the people they had come through. And let me tell you, some of those kids, they had to have a heart, because I mean, I'd seen these kids were just, you know, coming to church. The normal I seen and the normal these kids were 2 different normals.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and if you think about it, children and adults learn how to behave from the environments that they're raised in.
Yeah.
So if you're raised in chaos, or you're raised in neglect, or you're raised in a constantly evolving situation that really increases your fight, flight, freeze, or fawn status, how do you adapt to calm and stable and quiet? It's hard.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, all right, and dealing with, you know what I mean, as you talk about adapt, I can think of, you know what I mean, as a world, our past year was all about adapting, all right? Let's talk about adapting for these kids in the foster care system during the past year, all right? You know, with everything that's going on in the world, was that any specialties that you worked in?
So, unfortunately, the pandemic didn't bring out the greatest in all families, and it created 2 problems. Number 1, there were more children that were coming into out-of-home care because more and more families were pushed past the point where they could parent their children in ways that did not cause harm. And number 2, it had a lot of foster families that were no longer open for placement for fear of getting sick. So we had like 2 giant problems. A lot of kids coming into care, and their homes that were typically open were no longer open, which meant there were a lot of kids that had nowhere to go. And so shelter care, or youth homeless shelters, or group homes and situations like that saw huge influxes of children because there was nowhere else for them to go. And we're still coming out of that now, where families are just starting to open up or consider getting licensed again.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I never, until you've been on the show, I really never stopped to think about what they would have went through during that whole session. And you know, families being the first thing I'm thinking is the families who are being shut out and go, wait a minute, I don't know where this person's coming from. I don't know if I want them. What is it? Yeah, and this is what I want to get into. What is it specifically that you would do to help someone in a family situation like that?
So, working with a foster family, and a lot of the work that I do is with the parents, the biological parents that are working toward reunification. But working with a foster parent, the best thing I can help them realize is, Tim, imagine if I picked you up and brought you to Turkey and set you down in Turkey with no one else and none of your belongings and said, figure it out. There's nice people in Turkey. They'll take care of you. And now imagine being 3 and being in that situation. That's what foster children experience. Everything is different. The language is different. The smells are different. The food is different. The environment is different. The safety is different. The streets are different. The people look different. The clothes are different. And we just expect kids to be grateful and adapt and be resilient. And then people get mad when they're not. When in reality, it's perfectly understandable with the situation that they're in. So it's just kind of hard, and giving people that sense of empathy is helpful.
So I'm going to do something real quick because your audio to me is very garbled, and I've got to fix it real quick. I'm going to pop you out and pop you back in and see if this fixes it.
Okay. Is that better? I never.
Yeah. Your video's still, but talk to me a little bit here. We'll see if we can get this working. So yeah.
Yeah. I never have any problems with this microphone, so I don't know what's going on.
I think it's the connection. I think it's something to do with your connection, and I can't fix it. And I've been trying to fix it for the past 10 minutes, and it's just not. No matter what I do, I can't fix it. It's frustrating. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're coming through clear, so I don't know.
Yeah. And again, when this happens, you know what I mean? No, Sarah, this is the great things of technology. All right. When this happens, it always happens after I do the checks beforehand, after I start the show. That's when it happens.
Yeah, because I have full bars and everything. So, and you are perfect.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Here's the catch to it. And it's very neat that, you know what I mean, you're on the show when this happens, is because I guarantee to most of our audience that she can tell you that almost every foster situation is another problem like this. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because nothing's ever perfect, I guess, in that world. It's almost always something unique that's a different problem. Like, okay, well, this is a new one.
Exactly. Yeah, you just kind of adapt and overcome and try and go with it. So
yeah. Well, let me ask you this one. This one here, I just thought about this as you were talking, Sarah. When you bring, you know what I mean, and I'm sure you've dealt with this, you bring a new child into a different home. Do you guys nowadays, I mean, when I was kids, it was, you know what I mean, whatever mom puts on the table, you eat. But nowadays, these kids are coming in, and some of them have different health needs. Some of them have different things that they can't eat. All right. Some kids at younger age may have started to develop personal preferences. So you walk into a home, and here's this kid that's been raised vegan, is now put into a home with barbecue addicts.
Absolutely. That is something that happens all the time as well, where it's not, I mean, it is food. And we had a child in our home that was a huge shock, because she really loved pasta and typical foods like that. And then we have a gluten-free house. And so we were eating different things, and she was like, well, this doesn't taste right. This isn't what we're looking for. And just kind of getting used to it and finding ways to get the food that they're used to while also meshing well in the family.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the other thing, is the gluten. I mean, there's just certain dietary things that have changed in our world, you know what I mean, for each person that comes along. And, you know, I have, like, you know, weird stuff that I can't stand to eat, but like my wife likes all kinds of stuff and can eat all kinds of foods. And I can't imagine these kids coming into these homes nowadays, or, and in your case, having to share with the parents, taking them on, going, okay, the kid you are getting cannot eat gluten. All right, you got to pull gluten out of everything you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And people, the people that I work with are very often surprised. They're like, yeah, the kids will just figure it out. And people's favorite phrasing is kids are resilient. That is not necessarily true. And that's not necessarily fair that we put this on on the children. So really connecting with them and understanding that their entire life changed. So how can you work with these children to give them some comforts from their past life?
Well, I mean, another theory I wanted to ask you on that really I've always thought about this too, is, you know, I don't know if you've seen the movie about that famous Christian song that came out a couple years ago called "I Can Only Imagine." All right, and the kid going through what he went through as a kid, as an adult, his music manager, whatever, says, whatever that pain is, all right, use that to go into your songs.
Mm-hmm.
Are these kids, even though the crap they're going through, your best is to try to make them great as a kid, but like, have you experienced over the past couple of years where some of them come out and they take the pain or the crap or the, shall we say, shit they went through,
Mm-hmm.
and use it to be successful in the world?
That's always a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's always a possibility. And just as often it goes the other way.
Yeah. We can't guarantee. Yeah, we can't.
Yeah.
It's in a magical world, it'd be great, but we can't guarantee that.
Well, and so many people think like, well, they're in a great home now, so everything is fine now.
Yeah.
And our daughter came to our home. She was 16 when she moved in, and we adopted her at 16 and a half. She'd been in out-of-home care for 8 years. And people are like, well, she lives with you now, and, you know, look at everything you know and everything that you support. And why isn't she just better?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, it doesn't work that way. And it takes time and healing trauma. And the fact that a child is not living with their parents and their family of origin, that's a trauma. And like all of these different aspects. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, and at 16, all right, do they still have attachment to their birth parents, to where they, you know, I mean, whether it was a good or abusive relationship, that
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. They some of them want to go back. Is that correct?
Of course. Well, absolutely. I mean, there's attachment. Attachment is a biological necessity to make society maintain, like to continue to grow.
Yeah.
So that's the only way we take care of children, because if you think of kids at different ages and stages, if we didn't have attachment, we'd like send them outside and be like, you're on your own now because this is too much. But biology says, oh, we love them, we're going to take care of them, which means that even though there's been attachment traumas, attachment still remains, whether it's 5 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 50 years old, etc., even if there was significant trauma.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you know, and your main thing is to try to get them out of the trauma. All right. Because again, they don't know, again, they're kids. They don't 100% know what's best for them. All right.
Exactly.
Which I totally agree with that idea that up until 18 years of age, my daughter's my responsibility. At 19, when she walked out on her own, I'm sorry, it's now your responsibility, Jess. It's not Dad's no more. All right. Up until that point, I'm responsible. All right. I carry on everything in my world. So to make sure that they get out, that they get to 18 safely and they get to 18 healthy.
Well, and the hard thing is with kids who've experienced trauma, they're not ready at 18.
Wow.
They're not ready at 19. They're probably not ready at 20. So like our daughter, she actually turns 19 in a couple of weeks, and she has had to come back home for some additional support. And I'm not surprised, and I'm not disappointed. I'm actually really happy that when a crisis happened, she called me. And that means that, hey, we've got this really strong attachment. She trusts me. She knows that she can come home and she's safe. And I'm going to be able to help her and support her. And really, that's what we're after.
Well, I mean, and yeah, that you know, and that's it. You've built a structure to know that she's got a support structure that she can always fall back on no matter what. And I built that even for my stepsons, and I met them as adults.
Exactly.
I wanted a support structure that they know I can always go to Tim. All right.
Exactly.
And I mean, I wanted to know that. I mean, because my dad did that for me growing up. Now, my dad didn't have his dad growing up as a kid. He reconnected with his dad right around when he became an adult, and then his dad died.
Okay.
And he had no lessons on how, and he had 4 boys. Had no lessons on how do I raise 4 boys. He grew up with all sisters and a mother, and now he grows as an adult. He's got 4 boys. All right, he's got to do, and I think he did very well with us. But he was very much of the for us. All right, this is my dad's. I want to raise my boys so that when they turn 18, they can take on the world. If they need to come over and lean on me to ask me a question, I'm here for them. All right, but I'm not making their decisions for them anymore. All right, and it's up to them to make their decisions, and I'm going to teach them to take responsibility for those decisions. As a child, you're still not to that phase yet. All right. And I assume when they come to your home, you're taking care of them. You're now having to deal with, in your case, a 16-year-old, 15 years of mistakes, knowing that you're going to still make mistakes.
Exactly, because all parents do. Yep.
For the record, yes, I know my mother made mistakes. Anyway, she listens to my podcast on a regular basis, even though she's not here on time. Anyway, but yeah, all parents do. I made mistakes with my kid. All right. And you're trying to do everything you can to really take because there's like a meter of like, if we put it on a meter, you get, in some of your cases, you're getting the really drastically off the edge meter, I guess, that are coming to you.
Absolutely. And in my business, I'm working with parents whose children are in foster care. And really, they had the similar experiences. They experienced those similar traumas, and they just parented the best way that they could when possible. So not ideal, but still there.
So some of these parents you're working with, all right, these parents, are they the ones that actually have kids that have been put into the foster system, and you're trying to help them get the kids back, or this is parents who's taken on the kids, or both?
Both. Yeah. I work with both. I would say the majority of my clients are parents whose kids are in the foster care system living with foster parents. And then I also do some work with foster and adoptive parents.
Okay. And I guess that, you know what I mean? It's almost like, you're like the dream, because every parent is like, every parent realizes, hey, this is on the job training, by the way. You're going to hear from a ton of parenting experts out there who have no kids. Like, I can't think of who the famous person is they were talking about the other day. This person here has given so much advice to parents, yet they have no kids. So much advice on marriage, yet they have never been married. And it's like, your case, you actually experienced this.
Yeah, the best parenting advice experts are the people who have not parented a day in their life. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It's well, I say that in the guru space. All right. You know what I mean? I'm kind of in the guru space of online marketing, and I see a ton of people, Sarah, who basically they had one successful campaign. And they go out and teach that one campaign of great. Of course, they don't realize that campaign worked in 2006. It doesn't work anymore, but they keep teaching it. It's like the guy who teaches you how to write and market your book. All right. And he produced one book, and, way many years ago, before all the stuff's out there. It's like, this is an ever changing, you know what I mean, dynamic. All right. And especially you with kids, these are ever changing dynamics. The kids that are coming into the foster care system are nothing like the ones that I met in 1988, 87.
The children of today are so different than the children of just 5 years ago. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Just the differences in social media and mental health and supports and other parents' parenting styles and how that's impacting their children. So like, it changes. You may as well print it on newspaper. It changes so fast.
Well, and I remember, again, that the family I told you that I was very close to, I remember they had, they took in this teenage boy. And I remember they were, there was a real problem with him. And like we were staying at their house when we were kids, for a few months while our house was being built as kids. And I remember the parents, the foster parents went away and left this kid at home. And my father's in charge of the house, and my father, who doesn't deal with foster kids, my father he was a school teacher, but this was a dealing he had to deal with. And my dad had a rule for all of us kids on Sunday morning. We got up and went to church.
Mhm.
And he said to this kid, I'm sorry, you're going to church. And they're like, no, the agreement I have. And my dad says, I'm sorry, I have no. And he couldn't pick up his cell phone back then and call. This was like 1982, right?
Mhm.
He could pick up his cell phone and ask the parents, is this true? You know what I mean? Is this kid
Mhm.
telling me the truth or a lie? So my father had to make a decision that it got my dad in trouble, but he made the decision and he said, I don't know how to do this because I'm not trained to be a foster parent. However, I have to abide. I have to take care of you while you're in this house while your foster parents are away.
Mhm.
All right. And my dad made the choice. And in that case they're getting into situations where, it's entirely different today, again, because we have a whole different internet world that we didn't have back then. But these
Mhm.
kids coming into a home that there may be certain religious beliefs.
Mhm.
Child had a different religious beliefs.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's stuff to deal with this nowadays. There wasn't back in 1982.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules, and there's something called prudent parenting standards. And prudent parenting standards, say that 10 times fast, is the ability to make certain choices about certain things. And religion is not one of them, and hair is one of them either. So hair care isn't one either.
All right, are you there? All right, you
I'm
popped
here.
out.
Yeah, I popped
You
out.
popped out for a minute. I got to repeat that. All right, repeat that statement again one
Yeah.
time because you popped out.
No, that's okay. So it is parent or hair care and is not a prudent parenting standard, and neither is religion.
Not his religion. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. So and I do know. Again, I grew up in a church, so I know some of these parents doing this were to try to convert kids to. I hate to say that. Because I really don't feel converted. I feel they're trying to share with kids their religious beliefs.
Mhm.
All right. But you know what I mean? That was one of the reasons they were doing it. But the most part, some of the families that were really successful at were basically trying to show these kids love because these kids didn't have it. That was
Mhm.
the main thing these kids did not have when they jumped from home to home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, Sarah, let me ask you this. All right. Do you and your spouse, do you have any natural kids of your own, or you only have fosters?
Only an adoptive daughter at this
Oh,
time.
only adopted daughter. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
And growing up, did you have friends who were adopted or friends who were in the foster care system?
Not in an official capacity. So there's out of home, non-relative, there's relative, and there's like kin, which means there's people that are close to your family but are not blood relatives. And I had friends who lived with like kin.
Okay. And seeing that growing up, all right, did that have any bearing on your decision to go into this, to working with people in this field?
I think so. And actually, if you would have asked me a couple of years ago if I would be a parent coach to parents with substance abuse issues and chronic homelessness, I would have said absolutely not. Like, that's ridiculous. I was a corporate trainer. I was hired by companies to roll out their training programs. I had a lovely 6-figure job. I loved life. And this was always like that would be really cool if I could help other people, but no. And then a social worker told me, like, you need to do something about this. So I went through a graduate level program to become a parent coach. I landed a contract with a government agency, and it just took off. And now I'm full-time doing this, looking to hire more people in my business and making a huge impact. But if you would have asked me even 5 years ago if I'd be sitting here with you today, I would have laughed at myself. I'd be like, no, that's not a thing.
Yeah, I know I actually sat yesterday with a friend of mine I knew when I had my big car wash business 20 years ago now, and sitting with him yesterday we're talking about how the changes in our lives, who we were when we met, all right, and who we are now, just two different people. And we laugh about it, you know what I mean, about the journey that we went on. and the circumstances that changed us that make that happen. Anyway, well, let me ask you this. All right, is your parents are your parents still with us, or have your parents passed on? And if they are with us, how was your relationship with them?
My parents are still alive,
Mm-hmm.
and childhood was not great.
Mm-hmm.
And we are developing a far more connected relationship now that I'm an adult.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. It's always interesting when I find people, who work in the child world of talking to them about the relationships they have with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think I have a great relationship with my mom. My mom now moves and lives close to me. For years, she was around the other side of the world. My dad passed over 10 years ago now, and the relationship I have with my dad, even though I lived so far away from my dad, it was a great relationship. But growing up, all right, I feared my dad, and it's interesting how the relationships change over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I wished I had more time with my dad now. You know what I mean? And I see some of these kids going, oh man, I can't wait to go up with my parents. I'm like, yeah, that was me when I was 18, but now I wish I would have stayed at home another 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your parents don't, though. Sometimes it's just really nice to raise adult children that are on their own and doing really well. So just throwing that one out there.
Well, then again, we did not go through I'm not college educated. So my father went back to get college education because he became a school teacher teaching. He was a diesel mechanic who went to school to teach diesel mechanics in school.
Very
and
cool.
He had to go get, when he started teaching these high school kids, my dad didn't even have a high school diploma himself. All right. Mm-hmm. And he was a very successful mechanic. And that is why they asked him to come in and teach kids how to be mechanics, because he was very good at it. And, he had to go back to college. Well, when we were kids, my dad, it was like, if you want to go to college, that's on you. Mm-hmm. But he didn't really back the college system. And I didn't go to college. I did go to some trade schools, did learn some stuff through that way. I'm a big proponent of the education system. I just don't have I don't have an associate's or a bachelor's or anything of that, or master's. My brother now has a master's, though. He went to school to get a master's. So, and it's interesting how the way my father raised me, of how much that translated into how I raised my children. In your case here, you're raising someone else. Someone else started the job. You're finishing the job. But how is that relationship with the kids compared to the relationship your parents have with you?
So it's interesting because I'm raising lots of people's children.
Yeah.
Our daughter lived in multiple homes before she came to live with us, which meant she had different ideas of how things operated before living with us. And I will say, I had to let go of everything I thought that I knew about parenting when I started parenting children that came from trauma, because that approach doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And it has allowed me to have a much closer relationship with the children in my home than if I had parented the way that I was if I parented the way I was parented.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, the people the parents you're working with in your business, mm-hmm. how many of them are having to learn because they learned to parent from the way their parents raised them, and they're realizing you're now basically what you're working with is correcting second generation problems?
Multiple generation problems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my clients were adopted.
Wow.
So it's a statistic that children that were raised in foster care, their children will be raised in foster care, and their children will be raised in foster care, because even moving into a loving and supportive home, it doesn't necessarily resolve all of the trauma. And those first couple of months or first couple of years really lay on how you relate with people and how you relate with the world. That's attachment science, is the first 12 months. Mm-hmm. And so I'm helping my clients realize that they don't have to relate to the world the way they have been. Mm-hmm. And that means they also don't have to relate to their children the way that their parents related to them. and kind of interrupting some of that generational aspect.
Well, yeah, because I noticed that, you know what I mean? I have, until you said that, all right, foster care kids will be their own. I'm like, whoa, that was a mind blower to me. But like, it's almost like the generational curses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, oh my gosh. And I get it. We're not perfect as parents, all right? So, but my daughter goes, I mean, there's things you didn't do that was perfect, but great. You get a chance to correct it when you get your own kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
but if you don't do anything to learn and grow and analyze why you respond the way you respond, nothing changes.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, I in the early 90s started dealing with it was a multi-level marketing type business that taught you you need to be involved in personal growth to make your business grow. All right. And that was one of the greatest tools I ever got in life, was being in that group at the time, was because it taught me. Mm-hmm. You can go grow a business all day long. All right. But if you don't have personal growth, you're never going to, you know what I mean? There's going to be problems somewhere. I mean, it's not just grow the business. You got to grow personally. And that's it. I've learned to be personal. That's where I learned to favor education on different levels. Now, I've got a book on my desk that I always read, and, books that I have that I educate myself with. And I'm guessing a lot of these parents coming to you have probably, when they got out of high school, never picked up a book.
Well, hopefully they'll pick up my book.
Well,
so,
of course, we all have to pick up your book.
Everybody has to pick up my book, especially foster and adoptive parents, because I wrote it, it's small, it's easy, it's digestible, and it lets you feel like you're not alone. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree. A lot of people have a very hard time finishing a book.
So do I. Yeah. It usually takes me 4 or 5 times to go through the book before I actually finish it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. That's why they say not to put things at the end of the book, because most people don't get to the end of the book.
Well, I put something, I don't know if you noticed, I put something at the end of all of my stuff to find out who actually goes through. And my video, like, I don't know if you remember my video for thank you. And I actually put a thing at the end to see who actually does it. And I can tell you, it's about 1 in 10 person tells me that phrase they're supposed to tell me.
I can't remember what it is, but I did watch it all the way to the end. I signed up a while ago. I know.
Well, that's it. I mean, to be on my podcast right now, if you sign up to be a guest, it's like almost September before you can get a spot right now. Which is another good problem to have, by the way.
It's an amazing problem to have. Yeah.
Because that was one of my biggest headaches of having a podcast, was finding guests. And I was like, so I found a way to make it easier. Yeah. On myself. Mm-hmm. So. Well, Sarah, all right, it's been an interesting conversation today, because I learned a lot of stuff I did not know. All right. I mean, I've heard about the foster care system my entire life, but boy, you shared an awful lot of things that, these kids with trauma and parents and everything, other people may be listening in and want to find more information. How do they get a hold of you, and what is the best website to reach you?
The best website to reach me is at www.thefosterlane.com. And that's where you can find out about my book. I've got an online course, and you can find out about my coaching as well.
Cool. That's thefosterlane.com. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, before you go, all right, I do this with everybody, Sarah. I've got this 9-question, this or that game. I've prepared 9 questions to see which one you choose. Are you ready to play a game?
I'm ready to play a game.
Okay. Number 1, Sarah, I ask this one to everyone. It's Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Luke, I am your father. I guess that's a line you might hear regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. That was just the best foster line joke I could ever come up with.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Sarah, when you're riding in your car, do you listen to podcasts or music? Podcasts. Yeah, I've gotten to some audio, some music. I'm kind of back and forth. So yeah, it's different, but it's interesting.
So those people want to learn. Nothing. Yeah.
How about this? All right. When you go out nowadays, after being stuck inside for a year and a half, are you a dress up girl, or are you someone who wears yoga pants?
Yoga pants. I'm wearing them right now, and I'm very comfortable.
My first virtual speaking gig I did with my pajama bottoms on, and I love the fact that I could finally do that and say I did it once in my life.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting. So, how about this? If we're going out for lunch, hamburger or taco?
Taco. Every day of the week.
Oh, so not just on Tuesday, and the fact that it's Taco Tuesday, not just on Tuesdays, huh?
Exactly.
And what do you have with your taco? Beer or wine?
I guess wine.
You're from Wisconsin and you have wine.
I know. I'm not a big drinker. So it's actually a Fresca if I have the opportunity, but that wasn't a choice.
Yeah, I know. I personally, more lately have been more bourbons and whiskeys and stuff. So yeah, it's my tastes have changed over the years as well.
Yeah.
But I grew up with like moonshine and so.
As you do. Yeah.
How about this? If you had to pick which fight to be in, would you rather be in a snowball fight or a water balloon fight?
Snowball fight, hands down. I'm allergic.
You can tell the Northerners on the show. I'm just saying, it's snowball fight right there. Yeah.
Exactly. I have pretend snowballs behind me right now, so I'm down.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. How about when you're going out? All right. Are you a heels girl or a boots girl?
Boots.
Boots? Like
easy.
I have like this collection of cowboy boots, right?
Yeah.
I'm making sure, you Wisconsin girls might be wearing Uggs boots. So
I'm not wearing Uggs, but with my leggings, a nice comfortable knee-high boot. Oh yeah. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to our 2 controversial questions to round it out.
Okay.
Toilet paper at your house, does it go over on the roll or under?
Well, over. Absolutely. And at my office.
And at your office? Yeah.
If someone turns it around, I'm like, this will not fly here.
I had a girl from New Hampshire on last year who said, well, I'm a single girl. And if I date a guy and I go to his house and I change that toilet paper from under to over more than twice, I'm breaking up. This relationship's going nowhere.
She's solid. She knows. Yeah.
Or the classic is the people who come on the show and they're all rainbows and unicorns until you ask that question and it's over.
Because that's the right answer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, they have opinion. I mean, they're free and willing to go through everything in life, but not the toilet paper. Anyway.
No.
Last question: boxers or briefs?
Boxers or briefs? I mean, I guess boxers.
Your husband wants to know what to put on, so yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
So yeah, I asked that question. I actually had a guy on a couple weeks ago, and we had this like 20-minute conversation about what we like to wear and why.
I mean, that's fair. That's understandable.
And I've only had one girl on the entire time I've done it who basically her line of business, I was able to ask her what kind of underwear she wears and get away with it. I don't ask that to women. I throw the boxer briefs because it's a weird one out there. Anyway.
I mean, that's fair. I get that. Yeah.
Got to be respectful of people. So anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Sarah, one more time, I want you to tell them the website so they can find you and anything you've got going on the website they can connect to you and take this conversation to the next level.
Absolutely. So you can find me on thefosterlane.com, and really on the website, you can find information about my book. I have a virtual training that is on attachment and connecting in deeper ways to your children, along with a strategy that you can utilize. And there's information about my coaching.
Cool. Well, Sarah, first of all, I thank you for taking time out of your schedule today and being my guest today, coming here, talking to my audience and my community. I really appreciate you taking that for me.
Absolutely. Thank you. And hopefully the audio figured itself out, but I don't know.
Hopefully it did. So
hopefully. Yeah.
Other than that, all right. I want to thank you guys, the audience, for tuning in today. All right. This is the Tim Gillette Show. All right. Be sure and subscribe to us where you get your podcasts as well as our YouTube channel. And go to thefosterlane.com and check out Sarah today because she's one of the coolest people on the planet because she was on our show. That's it. I'll be back with another guest real soon. In the meantime, guys, have a great day. I'm Tim Gillette. Bye now.